in front of me here is an Ohio Combat Sledgehammer 42-inch wing. And what I'm going to do is show the carbon layout. I'm going to try to do this rather quickly. You remove both wing panels from the wing beds. As you can see, there's a definite top and bottom. So the first step is going to be splitting the wing beds here. And all we're using is the bottoms. Now I have two halves here and my two panels. Now I'm placing these upside down, but that's just because I'm working on it, and I'll flip it right side up when I move on to other steps. But the first step is carbon arrangement. It's typically kit specific, but with this kit, it's an inch to an inch and a quarter back from the leading edge. It just depends. First thing to do is measure back. Then take your straight edge. Now I place mine at 1 1/8 back. Enough that shows up too well, but there's my root, or my leading edge, and then my root. The center of gravity on this kit is 9 to 9 1/4 inches, so I'm going to place mine at 9 inches back from the leading edge. And you may want to allow for the thickness of the marker or whatever you're using. So I actually placed that at 9 1/8, so it should be 9 inches once I route it out. This is what I use, and I base the depth on the type of carbon that I'm using. What I have here is 1/4 inch carbon spar, and I usually lay my carbon across there to determine the thickness or determine the cut depth. And I typically go and actually 1/16 of an inch deeper, maybe a little bit more, just so that because this is a compound curve, and sometimes the depth isn't going to be exactly the same, so you definitely want to go a little deeper. Spacing on this depends on the position that you use the router, but on this router it's 1 3/4 of an inch. And you have two things you can do. I measure back. One 3/4, 1 3/4, just to make sure I'm the same. Now the easiest thing would be to, and I'm just showing one panel here, is to transfer your marks from this panel to the other panel, and it's just so that you're consistent. So my next step is routing this out. The other thing would be to use the carbon to help clean out the spar slot. Okay, now this piece of carbon is actually wider than my router bit. Not by much, but what I'm going to have to do is, because it is reposition this to 1 3/4 centered. That's where my original cut was, is 1 3/4. So what I'm going to do is move it 1/16 of an inch off center. And make another pass. Carbon down through here. Okay, another quick note is that I never place my carbon right up against where it can make contact with another piece or at the tip. I cut it back about 1/4 of an inch. Same thing at the root. Leave 1/4 inch, and then here, between where the spars will meet together, is 1/4 of an inch. And it just allows a little bit of protection from having the carbon making contact with each other in minor crashes. And major crashes, it's inevitable. It's going to get damaged. There's that. The other thing would be marking the carbon so I know where to cut it off at. Because it's already on the wing, makes it a little easier. If you want, you can use your ruler or whatever you're using, and try to keep it at the proper angle too, so you know. And even if you wanted to, you can mark it so you know what's what. But I've got 1/4 inch here and 1/4 inch there. Pull it out. I know that's my angle that I need to cut at. But I do mark the top, so I know where it's at when I cut it off. And it's just to keep that angle. Now when you're doing the root, it's important to know that the shape of the wing, it plays a big key in how that's done. Because this is not, it's more of a diamond profile. So if I just routed this out the same depth I did this, it'll sit fine here, but it'll stick out at the root. Or if I press down here, it's going to stick out here. So it's important. I went a 16th. I'll end up going 3/8 deep here. And when you're inserting the carbon, when you're gluing these together, it's important to push on the ends and not the center. If you can push on the ends and it stays in the wing, at least a 16th below here, you're fine. But if you're pressing on the ends and this is flush, you still need to go deeper. So it's important to make sure that's at the proper depth when you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up. That off center again, the 1/16 of an inch. Check to make sure that I'm using the same piece. I'm just checking to make sure that it fits snug. But like I said, if I'm pushing here, you can see this is coming up. And I cut that at the same depth. So if I push here, it comes up here. So it's important that you get that to the proper depth here and at the tips. That one was about a 1/16 deeper, and if I measured it, I'm sitting at 5/16 right now. So I'm going to have to go to 3/8 on my router.